Welcome to Tipsy Tuesday. Today, I want to talk a little bit about the masses being banned in St. Peter's Basilica. If you've been following me on social media, you might be getting tired of hearing about it. But I want to talk about it a little more just because rather than just a little post or a little video clip, I can kind of vent and talk about what's happening because it's a big deal, and some people don't think it's really a big deal. The people that don't think it's a big deal have probably never traveled before because it is a big deal. So if you're not familiar with the story, as of yesterday, no more private masses are allowed in St. Peter's Basilica. You can have private mass in the grottos. You can have regularly scheduled masses up in the basilica, but no more private masses in the church. And some people are excited about this. They say that, private mass is an oxymoron and they're not supposed to be allowed, and Vatican II did away with that. They don't really understand what a private mass is. So that's kind of the problem. The terminology is not so good. But here in Rome, and I guess other places too, a private mass is just a mass that's not part of the regular mass schedule. So if you've ever traveled on a pilgrimage, maybe to Italy or maybe to the Holy Land or to Lourdes or something like that, and you're with your pilgrimage group and you had mass with your priest in a church, that was a private mass. So it doesn't mean it's just a priest alone, although that's possible too. It just means any mass that's not on the regular mass schedule. That's a private mass. And so in St. Peter's, there are 29 altars upstairs in the basilica. They're not all used for masses. Like the Pietà has an altar that's very rarely used for mass. Obviously, nobody's using the papal altar or the altar of the chair. There's a couple other altars that are off limits. Maybe there's things stacked in front of them or something. So let's say there are about 21 usable altars upstairs in St. Peter's. And so for, I don't know how long, centuries, people go to St. Peter's, a priest, if he wants to celebrate Mass, either alone or for friends and family or for a group, then he can either make a reservation through the sacristy or just show up at 7 a.m., go into the sacristy, get vested, and then go out to whatever altar is available. So again, 21 of those altars upstairs, 7 a.m., Mass is going on, and anybody can join these Masses. Anybody can be visiting Rome, so maybe you're a pilgrim to Rome, or maybe you're a tourist and you just want to get up early and beat the crowds and go to St. Peter's at 7 a.m., or maybe you're a student and you want to go to the church. Anybody can go to these Masses. They're not closed. Again, private isn't the best terminology for it because private kind of makes it sound like it's behind a curtain or below ground or nobody else can go. But private just means it's a private reservation for a person or for a group. So anybody can walk in 7 a.m., walk up to one of these altars, like the altar of John Paul II or Pius X or John the 23rd. There's the altar of St. Joseph. So all these beautiful chapels and altars built around the church that anybody can go to for these private masses. So again, that's been going on for centuries. And a priest can have a mass. Usually they start around 7:15, goes for about half an hour. Then another person can have that altar, another group can have that altar or that chapel. That goes for half an hour. And then they usually allow some of the altars to go even beyond 8 o'clock to like 8:30. And the altar of St. John Paul II, they would even have a Mass at 8:30. So that's 2 for sure, sometimes 3, maybe 4 Masses going on at all of these altars in St. Peter's from 7 a.m. until about 9 a.m., 8:30 or 9. So imagine that's at least 42 Masses, maybe 63 Masses. So every single day of the year for centuries happening in the Basilica. Those are the private masses. And then in the grottos, so those, if you've ever been into St. Peter's, you know that there's the Scavi tour that takes you down below the Basilica, below the grottos to the tomb of St. Peter. But the grottos, that's where a lot of the popes are buried. So many popes are buried upstairs, but we have most of the popes buried down in the grottos. So the grottos, there are 12 chapels down there. And those chapels, they can hold, there's the one main chapel, which holds probably over 100 people. But all the other chapels are small. And so they hold 8 people, 10 people, I think one holds 12. They're all pretty small. But masses can go on down there as well. For those chapels, though, like if you were just a random priest or even a small group coming into the church on, let's say, a Tuesday morning, and you didn't have a reservation, you said, can I have an altar? Then they would say, sure, here's the mass kit, here's the vestments, go out into the church and find an altar. But you wouldn't be able to go into the grottos unless you had a reservation. And if you were just a pilgrim, a tourist, a student, or somebody studying in Rome or living in Rome, like I do this all the time too, then you are not allowed into the grottos if you're not with a group or a priest who has a reservation. You can't just walk up at 7 a.m. to the grottos and walk down there. You have to go past a guy, and he has a list. He has a little checklist. Is your name on the list? Yes, you can go down. Is your name not on the list? Then no, you may not go down. So 12 masses going on downstairs twice a day. So that's 24 masses again, 42 to 63 going on upstairs, assuming all the altars are used. Usually all the altars are full. So most of the time, all the altars have a priest celebrating Mass. And again, sometimes it's just a priest by himself, but anybody can walk up and become the congregation. Most of the time, it's not just a solo priest. There's usually 2 or 3 people, or the ones that have pews. So a few of them, like John Paul II, Pius X, John the 23rd, St. Joseph, a couple of the other chapels, they have some pews, so people can actually sit, and it feels more like a traditional Mass, like back home. Otherwise, you have to stand. So anybody can go to those Masses. Into the grottos, not everybody can go. So the other day, or yesterday, it became official that there would be no more private Masses in St. Peter's Basilica. And as for the reasoning, the official document said it was because they want to preserve the sanctity of the Mass. And so I can understand that they don't want like anything crazy going on in St. Peter's. Like you can understand that. But all the Masses could have an altar server. So there's an altar server that walks each priest out to the altar and offers to stay. The priest doesn't always accept. Sometimes they send him back. Sometimes they don't need an altar server. They're going to do it themselves, or they have somebody with them that'll serve. But they could use the altar server, and that altar server could make sure nothing crazy is going on. There's also security patrolling the church. I don't mean like the police. I mean like basically like what you might consider an usher back home. Just guys that roam the church all day and make sure that people aren't wearing hats, people aren't talking on cell phones, people aren't eating or stepping into places they're not supposed to go. So those guys are always walking around the church at all hours that it's open. So they could be making sure that nothing weird is going on. And, from any one spot, you can see several of the altars. So one guy could very easily watch 3 of the chapels to make sure that nobody's like dancing on the altar or something, or whatever's been going on that they're afraid of. I don't know. But that's their reasoning, is to preserve the sanctity of the Mass. And so what they've done is they've stopped all the Masses upstairs, except for the official ones. Again, the official Masses have not stopped. So the St. Peter's has a regular Mass schedule. There's a couple Masses a day at the altar of St. Joseph. There's the Mass in the Adoration Chapel. and there's a few at the altar of the chair. So those masses are going to continue. They've even added a couple of masses upstairs in the 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock hour that are now for concelebration. So if a priest wants to celebrate Mass in St. Peter's, he can concelebrate with other priests. And those are going to be only in Italian. So I failed to mention that. If you're with a group of Americans, you can have Mass or not anymore, but with the private Masses, you could have Mass in English with your priest. If you're a group from Mexico, Spain, you could have Mass in Spanish. If you're from Portugal, Brazil, the Mass could be in Portuguese. So Polish, like the Polish community, they always have John Paul II's tomb on Thursdays, so their Mass is in Polish. There are over 100 people that go to that Mass every week, about 50 priests, so that's also a private Mass. So now Mass is only in Italian in the Basilica and only concelebrated, so a priest cannot have a Mass for his group in the church. The group can join the Mass, and the crazy thing about the Masses that are for concelebration, I think they're doing one at the altar of the chair, so that's the big altar there, not the papal altar, but the other big altar. But the other ones, they have in the Adoration Chapel, which is behind a curtain, and then the other one that's available for concelebration is the choir chapel, which is also known as the wedding chapel. And that one is also behind a curtain. Now, if you are a group, you have your own priest, or if a priest still wants to celebrate a Mass alone, maybe he lives here in Rome or he's visiting Rome and he's always wanted to celebrate Mass at St. Peter's, he can still make a reservation and reserve an altar downstairs. So some people have been arguing like priests shouldn't be celebrating Mass alone, and that's why they don't want this going on. You can still do it downstairs. Priests can still have Mass on their own downstairs. So that has not been stopped. So all the people that are saying like private Masses are bad, like they're still allowing private Masses, just not upstairs in the church. It's only downstairs. The other thing about the grottos is, like I mentioned, you have to have permission to go down there. Now, they might open it up and like not be so picky about who can go down or who cannot go down. But the way you get there, if you've been to St. Peter's, the entrance is under one of the statues by the Baldacchino. If you haven't been to St. Peter's, you're walking into this massive church that's 2 football fields long. It's over 200 meters long. And at about the 150-yard mark, that's where the main papal altar is, the Baldacchino. That's that big canopy over the altar. Around that are 4 statues, St. Veronica, St. Helen, St. Andrew, St. Longinus. Under each one of them, they have like a little gate. The one under St. Andrew, there's a little guy standing there, who's like a normal sized guy, but compared to the statue, he's small. He's the security guy or the custodian or whatever you want to call him. He's guarding that stairway because they don't want just any random person going down there. Like, let's see, they stopped yesterday. So at Friday, if I went to St. Peter's and it was the 7 a.m. hour, I went over to the statue of St. Andrew and I said, hey, I want to go down to the grottos and see if I can find a Mass. They would say no, because I'm not on the list. So maybe they'll loosen that up a little bit. But the other thing is that I know where that is. Most people don't know where that is. I was with my wife there yesterday. She's been to Mass in the grottos. She's been to the grottos many times. And I mentioned something like, oh, to get in the grottos, you got to go. And she didn't know where to go. Like, she lives here 7 years, goes to St. Peter's all the time, has been in the grottos. Even she didn't remember how to get down into the grottos. So think about a person that's visiting Rome early in the morning. It's their first time in Italy or something. They want to go to Mass at St. Peter's, and they can't find where Mass is. Maybe they'll plaster signs up in the church like Mass this way with an arrow or something. Doubtful. But even if, like, I'll have the information on my website, like you need to go to the statue of St. Andrew, there's a staircase there, you go down, and that's where the grottos are. Even if I tell people that, how many people are going to be brave enough to go up to this guy and not speak Italian and be like, hey, I want to go to Mass downstairs? Like, most people are not that brave when they're traveling. They're a little intimidated. You see a guy in a suit standing in front of a stairway behind a marble, what do you call that thing? Like barrier, with a little gate that's open. Like, you're going to think that that's probably off limits. So a lot of the people were arguing that the private masses were too exclusive. Like, somebody even said it's like a country club. So only a select elite few can go to these private masses. And those people have no idea what they're talking about. Surely they've never been to Rome. They've never experienced this, because there's nothing exclusive about the private masses. So if anything, now having Mass only in the grotto, I mean, there's the concelebration behind a curtain. Again, when we went yesterday, the one behind the curtain was open partially, just enough to like walk through. It's a big chapel, so the curtain is huge. It's a big, probably like 100 feet tall curtain, really thick. And it was closed except for the door, so you could walk through. But there were 4 of the ushers outside. And so, again, if you're somebody that's new to Rome or a little intimidated by 4 Italian guys in suits standing outside of a gate that's barely open with a curtain closed, you're probably not going to go up to them and say, hey, can I go to this Mass? You might just skip it. So, if anything, the new restrictions make the Masses more exclusive, because fewer people are going to be going to these Masses. They're going to have fewer opportunities to go because, like I said, there's only 12 altars downstairs. So instead of the 42 Masses or 63 Masses upstairs, now there's going to be like 12 or 24. So I see some questions coming through. Is this a COVID thing? No, it's not. So a lot of people thought that maybe it's a virus thing. They're trying to, I don't know. Even if it was, it wouldn't make any sense, because now the Masses are in the grottos in tiny enclosed spaces, whereas before they were upstairs with the church doors wide open. And I mean, it's a big church, so germs are going to not be like all around you. They're going to be like going off somewhere else. But in the crypt and the grottos, that's a very tight, confined space. Okay. Somebody is saying, check my ego. Security is a priority. This isn't a security thing. I know the security. It's not a security issue. There was no concern with security with Masses upstairs. There's tons of security upstairs. We have to go through metal detectors, multiple checks. So this wasn't about moving the Masses downstairs so that there's more security. Chris, you're asking the question. Yeah, and I just answered it. Yeah, it's like they don't want anybody worshiping in the church. So when we went yesterday, all the altars now have the lights off. So in the mornings, the chapels were all lit up, like the mosaics were lit up. There was a light over the altar. It was very inviting. And now that's all turned off, so it's dark. I posted a picture on Instagram and Facebook so you can see what it looks like today as compared to a few days ago when Masses were allowed. I have like a side-by-side picture. It's very different. And the fact that the Masses now are behind a curtain or in the grotto, that's awful. There are some people that think that it's an attack on the traditional Latin Mass, because now there will be no Latin Masses in the Basilica. for years, there's been, I don't want to say officially because it's not an official Mass, but the same guy has been doing Mass in the traditional Latin extraordinary form every day. He does it at the altar of St. Michael. Before him, there was another priest that did it at the Transfiguration altar. So there's always been an extraordinary form Latin Mass in the Basilica every day of the year. And now that's being moved down into the grottos. So some traditional people are saying it's an attack on the Latin Mass because now you can't have the Latin Mass in the Basilica. And I think it's really just an attack on all the Masses because there's no more English Masses upstairs. There's no more Polish Masses, Spanish Masses, German Masses. They're all downstairs. I understand it's a different rite, so they feel like their rite is being attacked. I love that rite as well. I go to the extraordinary form any chance I get. But a good thing about that is they were given, the priest that does the extraordinary form, he was given the Clementine Chapel, which is, it's in the grottos, but it's the one directly in front of St. Peter's tomb. And it's also the smallest chapel down there, so that's not so good. But it's the most important because you're literally at Peter's tomb. If you've ever done the Scavi tour, you go underground, you're looking at the necropolis where all the tombs were, then you pop out, they walk you across this tiny little chapel, and then you go into another little room on the other side of that chapel, and then you can see the bones of St. Peter. So that chapel you walk through, that's the Clementine Chapel. And that's where you exit as well. That's when you end. And so now the Latin Mass will always, until hopefully someday this is overturned, they will always have the Clementine Chapel. And there have been a bunch of other rules, like only authorized priests can celebrate the Mass there. So I always loved being able to get my small groups into the Clementine Chapel because it is such a hard one to get. So you imagine every priest wants to have Mass in the Clementine Chapel. Every priest that visits Rome or lives in Rome, that's surely a dream to have Mass there. And so anytime I would have a small group, I would always request it. But very rarely was I able to get it. Sometimes I did. But now it's only for the Latin Mass. Unless, I guess, maybe they're not going to have the Latin Mass one day or something and they allow someone else to do it. I don't know. I guess they're going to have to work out all the details and any hiccups that come from all of this. But it's awful. And the reasoning doesn't make any sense. Like the person said, maybe it's because of security. They didn't say it was because of security. They said it was because they wanted to protect the sanctity of the Mass. And am I saying the Pope is oppressing our faith? It wasn't the Pope's decision. He's the boss, so it kind of comes down from him. And they can argue that it's not oppressing the faith because the Mass is still going on. So there are still, 10 Masses at St. Peter's a day, the official Masses. There are still the private Masses in the crypt. But what they're doing is they're taking away that opportunity for priests, and an opportunity that people have had for hundreds and hundreds of years to just walk into St. Peter's early in the morning, find a Mass in their language, in their vernacular, and attend Mass. I personally know of so many conversions or reversions that have happened because of this. So people come into the church and maybe they're not intending to go to Mass, they're just going into St. Peter's, because that's kind of like a travel pro tip in normal times. The Basilica opens up to tour groups at 9. And so people will come to the church early in the morning, like 7 a.m., 8 o'clock, just to get there before the crowds. And so many people, not Catholic, or maybe they've fallen away from the church, they come in, they'll be walking around, there's all these Masses, 20-something Masses going on at once. You might hear singing at this one, you might hear bells over here, you might see a bunch of nuns at this one, or just one priest alone over here, or a group of students at the one over there, and they might hear their language, that's English. And maybe they weren't expecting to hear an English Mass in Rome because it's Italy, right? So they walk over there, they go to the Mass, and then maybe they'll be like, oh, this is really special. Then they want to go to confession right away. There's confessions in English right over there. I hear these stories all the time. I mean, I'm blessed to live here and take people to these places and see this. I've had on my day pilgrimages that would include a Mass at St. Peter's. I've had people that, obviously I'm the Catholic traveler, so they know they're going for a Catholic tour of Rome, but maybe a family member is not Catholic or fallen away, or maybe they were raised Catholic but then kind of left the faith. And then we have our Mass at one of these side chapels in their language, and then they're like, I don't know what just happened. Like I had a guy get all dizzy once. He had to sit down, and right after he wanted to go to confession. He had been away from the church for 20 years, and his wife wanted to go on the tour with me, and he wanted to see Rome from a Catholic perspective, but he wasn't expecting to have that moment at a Mass at some random side chapel in St. Peter's. So he went to confession, and then he's back in the church now. And the same thing has happened with conversions. People, they're not Catholic at all. Maybe they're at school here. They come over with a student friend of theirs, and then they're like, wow, that Mass was beautiful. I wasn't expecting that at all. Then they want to look into the faith a little more. And yeah, so we're gonna miss out on that. And none of the other churches in Rome provide this experience. So at St. Mary Major, at St. John Lateran, St. Paul Outside the Walls, there's the other major basilicas. You can have private Masses there, but all those chapels they're chapels, they're behind doors. And so, again, anybody can go to them. You can show up, and if you see a group starting a Mass there, you can join. So it's not like they're private, our definition of private. But it's not going to have the same experience as walking into our greatest church, St. Peter's, and seeing 20 Masses going on at once, and then it feels welcoming to just walk up to one of these because they're open to the aisles. Anybody can just walk up. So we're missing out on that now. Other churches in Rome, they have side altars, but you don't have 40 priests and groups a day going to just some random church in Rome to celebrate Mass. So they would use the main altar. They wouldn't just have a bunch of side altar Masses going on. The question is, do I do pilgrimages? Does this affect my business? I do pilgrimages. This doesn't affect my business because there is no business right now. When people start traveling again, no, this won't affect my business because I don't make money off taking people to Mass. But it will, I think, impact the experience people have on pilgrimage, because we have Mass every day of our pilgrimages, and they are, by Rome definitions, private Masses because it's our priest, our group, we get his homily, all of that. And although we'll still be able to have Mass in the grottos, it won't be the same as having Mass in the church, surrounded by all of these other Masses, surrounded by all the beauty that's in St. Peter's. So it'll be a different experience. It'll still be a great experience, don't get me wrong. I've had many Masses in the grottos, and they're fine. You're in the grottos of St. Peter's. But it's not the same as being in the church. It's not the same. Donna doesn't get how this preserves the sanctity of the Mass. I don't think anybody gets it. They have not come out with anything official, like answering questions. It kind of came out of nowhere. I mentioned previously that this was rumored. Some guys at Catholic News Agency started talking about this in January. I forgot I'm having a drink. Back in January, I didn't believe it. I believe the guys at Catholic News Agency, but I didn't believe that they would stop the masses in the church. And then it was officially announced, I think it was like 11, 12 days ago. And I was shocked. Like, even though I knew it had been rumored, I didn't really think it was going to happen. So nobody has answered any questions about it. It kind of came out of nowhere, even though we've known for a little while. It's come out of nowhere because it doesn't make any sense at all. Looking for a couple more questions here. I'll share the experience of my first private mass at St. Peter's. It was my very first time to Rome. I came with a priest friend of mine. I've talked about him here a few times, Father Augustin Tron. He studied in Rome. He went to the North American College. And he invited me to Rome to see a few of his friends ordained as deacons. So the diaconate ordination, this was back in 1998. And the diaconate ordination was done by Cardinal Ratzinger, who's now Pope Benedict. And so that was the reason that we were coming over. I never had any interest of going to Europe. I knew that, Rome had a lot of old stuff. I didn't really know much more. But I was still excited to go, for sure. And so, very first day, where did we have Mass? Oh, we had Mass. We stayed in a chapel. We stayed in a convent near the Colosseum. This is the Ukrainian convent in the Monti district. And so we had Mass there in their chapel. Then the next day, he wanted to have Mass in St. Peter's because he was recently ordained. This was his first year as a priest. He had not been back to Rome since he was ordained, although he studied here for 4 or 5 years. So he wanted to have Mass at the altar of Pius X. And so that's the patron saint of Atlanta, for those wondering. I mean, he's a lot more than that, but this was the Archdiocese of Atlanta, and so that's where he wanted to have the Mass. Anyway, we didn't go in through the front door because priests here know that sometimes, they've gotten a little more strict about this, but sometimes you can go into the side entrance to get into St. Peter's. There's a gate where a Swiss Guard stands. You can go in over there if you're a priest. And you can go directly into the sacristy. Now, technically, I shouldn't have been allowed to accompany him, but I was probably wearing all black, because I usually do. And so we were able to get in through that way. Went into the sacristy. I'd never been in St. Peter's. The biggest church I'd ever been in would have been Christ the King in Atlanta. That's our cathedral in Atlanta, which it's a fine church. It's not St. Peter's. And our first day in Rome, we just kind of walked around a bit. I don't think we went into any churches other than the chapel at the Ukrainian convent. So I didn't even get that entrance into Rome, into St. Peter's, where you're walking in through the main door and you just see like the whole church. We went into the sacristy. The sacristy of St. Peter's is bigger than my parish back home in Atlanta. So that was amazing. I was just like looking up at everything. There were like 30 priests in there getting vested. St. Peter's has all the vestments you need, so the priests don't have to bring their own. So if it's Lent or Advent, they just wheel out like this garment rack full of all these different purple vestments, or they have the green vestments, or the white, or the red. So it's really cool to see. In fact, whenever I have like my private day tours and we would have a Mass, the priest always needs help like taking things back to the sacristy. So if there's like a kid or something, or somebody that's just really interested in church stuff, I have them take back the holy water and the books so they can get a glimpse into St. Peter's sacristy, because usually you can't just go back there. Anyway, I'm like overwhelmed by this huge sacristy, everything that's going on. And then we walk out. And so my first view of St. Peter's wasn't what most people have. I didn't see, like I said, the big entrance. I saw like from the side. And then we were walking up this, which is already really impressive. But then we're walking up a side aisle to get to Pius X's tomb, and I was like in awe of this. I'd never seen a mosaic that big. There's this huge mosaic behind the tomb. I had never seen a saint's body like just behind glass. Pius X is just behind glass. He has an iron death mask on, but he's, you can see his hands and stuff. I mean, he's wearing, you don't see his fingers, but you see like hands. So I was completely overwhelmed by this. And I don't remember anything from the Mass. I remember that, it was just the two of us, and there's, I'm supposed to like respond to the prayers. And I didn't, because I didn't know what was going on. But like that was my first experience with a private Mass. And I know so many people have that same experience of just being overwhelmed by the fact that they're in this most amazing church with all this history, saints, all this stuff. So that was my first private Mass experience. And I really hope that they reverse this ban, because like I said, it doesn't make sense at all. Okay, let me see if I have more questions, because I just talked for 40 minutes straight. I don't usually do that. Monica says, are we not giving enough money for the overhead? That's a great question. So I'm going to drink first. So for the Masses in St. Peter's, the official Masses, they do take a collection. They go up and down all the aisles, and they take money, a collection. The private Masses, they do not do a collection, but in the sacristy, there is a collection box. And so usually whoever arranges the Mass can, if it's like a group, they can take a collection at the Mass, or I always find that a little disruptive to take a collection at the Mass in St. Peter's. Plus, at least for me, it feels weird. Like I'm not an usher. It feels weird to, for me to be collecting money in the church, even if I'm going to go give it to the church. So I usually just, when I take the priest into the sacristy, I'll leave a donation in the box. So they could change that if it was a problem for the money, like they got to turn on an extra 42 lights or something to light up the altars. Maybe they could put a better collection basket. Some of the altars have one, like a little coin box, but they could do that. Or they could charge for Mass reservations. In the Holy Land, you have to pay to make a reservation for a private Mass. So if you want to have a Mass in the tomb at the Holy Sepulchre, you have to pay. If you want to have Mass at the altar or the Church of Transfiguration, you pay, in addition to like a collection that they'll take up. So yeah, I mean, there's ways around that. If there's a money thing, I guarantee if they said, we're running, because they have said they're running low on money for other stuff, they could say like, we're running low on money, we're going to need to start collecting money to continue these Masses. People would have given money, like, for sure. So we'll see what happens. I just don't see how this lasts. I mean, people have come out, they're mad about it. Cardinal Burke published an article about it. More cardinals and bishops need to be vocal about this and maybe say how special these Masses are. There's Cardinal Krajewski, he's I think I just said his name wrong. He's the guy that's in charge of the poor for the Vatican, and he's very close with Pope Francis, but he celebrates Mass in the church every single day. And sometimes I'll see him going down to the grottos, but usually it's upstairs. So I can't believe, I would imagine that he's expressed his concern as well. So Anne says no way money is a problem. They're swimming in it. They get a lot of money from things like the Vatican museums, and there's definitely no swimming going on at the Vatican museums right now. We've gone from 30,000 people a day at the museums to the museums being closed for the better part of a year and a half. So that's a big moneymaker for the Vatican. Same with the Scavi tour. That's how they make money. The Vatican gift shops, that's how they make money. So they're definitely hurting, just like everyone else is. They don't have a magic way of getting money. Of course, I'm sure they have reserves and all that, but I don't know anything about the Vatican finances. I try to stay away from that because that's a touchy subject too. But I know that just like everyone else in the world, they've taken a big hit over the last year and a half. Year? I don't know. What else? I guess I'm done talking about that, unless I see any more questions. Would it be possible to have a priest on as a guest to talk about private masses being closed? Yeah, maybe. I don't usually have guests, so. Peter's Pence. Yeah, Peter's Pence hasn't been doing very well either. And talking about donations for the church. That didn't do so well this past year. I think, maybe don't give to Peter's Pence for a while until they open things back up. Because they're not going to listen. I've talked about this too. People keep asking me, who can we complain to? Who can we write to? There's petitions going on. They don't care, right? Nobody in the Vatican is concerned that there's an online petition where people sign that they're angry about this. Those petitions never do anything. But the people in the Vatican, it's not like we vote them in. That's a good thing. They're not dependent on our votes, right? But it's not like they have to worry about upsetting people and then getting voted out. So who to complain to? I don't know. I guess the only way to complain is by not giving to things like Peter's Pence. For those of you that don't know, that's a yearly collection that goes to the Vatican. So most churches, I guess all churches, take that. And then once a year on the Feast of Saints Peter and Paul, I think for a couple days around that, there's guys that just walk around the Church of St. Peter's and take a collection. So, Anne means don't give. Yeah, exactly. I'm sorry. I misunderstood your comment there. She's saying don't give to Peter's Pence to make a point. Right. So, beyond that, I don't know what we can do. People say, I'm going to write to the Pope. That's great. You can write to the Pope. He's not going to read it. He has people that read all of those letters in the different languages, his translators. Some of them make them to him, some of them don't. People want to write to the new archpriest of the Basilica whenever he officially takes that position. This was made before he took over or before he was assigned this position. So I don't know if that'll do anything. It doesn't hurt, I guess, to tell people you're mad. I think if more cardinals and bishops speak up, maybe, I don't know. But if they're not answering any questions about it anyway, people in the media have been trying to get an answer, they don't say anything. So, that's the mass thing. If I see any more questions, I'll answer them about that. But let me give you a virus update. Everybody always likes the virus update. So we are still red here in Rome. That is, we have a 4-tiered system. White means everything is open. Yellow, a lot of things are open. Orange, a lot of things are closed. Red, everything is closed. So we are red. We've been red for a week and a half. I don't even remember anymore. It doesn't feel like lockdown at all. Everybody's out. It's weird. I guess it's like a lockdown light. So you recall the first time we couldn't do anything except go to the grocery store and pharmacies. Churches, if they were pretty much on our block, we could go there. And then everything opened up. And so red is supposed to be like a lockdown, but grocery stores are open, pharmacies are open, hardware stores are open. They were open last time too. Plant stores are open, flower shops are open, electronic stores are open, lingerie shops. I don't know why that's essential, but lingerie shops are open. Churches, of course, are open. Masses are open, 100% capacity. So no restrictions there. We are allowed to leave only for those essential reasons. So we have to have our papers with us when we leave. Have to write where we live, what time we're leaving, where we're going, what we're doing. Just like during the first lockdown. I have not heard of anyone being stopped or checked. And I know people that have gone all over the place. So it doesn't feel like a lockdown. I don't feel like I can't go outside. I have not been going far from home on the Feast of St. Joseph. We went to the St. Joseph Church, which is probably a mile from our house. So that was the furthest I went. And again, that's allowed. We weren't breaking any laws. But I guess I've said this before, like I live here, but also I'm not a Roman, I'm not Italian. So I feel like I'm visiting the country, and so I want to follow the rules. Maybe if I was in America, I might be a little more cavalier about what I do. So the Italians they're going around. I've seen some Americans that have gone far from home and doing things. Again, nothing that's not allowed, but maybe is pushing it a little. Like the church thing, we were originally allowed to go near home. And so in my head, I'm still thinking like it should still be near home. At Christmas, we were allowed to go to Mass, but it had to be in our neighborhood. So bookstores. Christina says, yes, bookstores are open too. Yeah, bookstores are essential. So anyway, it doesn't feel like a lockdown. The people that are suffering the most are restaurants. Hollywood is here, so we have Al Pacino, Lady Gaga, and that guy from Star Wars, the new Star Wars trilogy. He was the bad guy. Then maybe he turned into a good guy. Maybe then he went bad again. I don't know. The guy, what's his name? Adam Driver. That's it. So he's here. They're filming a movie right now. So they're out on the street filming. That's okay. Like I said, you can buy lingerie. You can get coffee to go. You can get food to go. But the restaurants, it feels like this lockdown is only punishing the restaurants because like to go is kind of a thing here now, but it's not like America. I mean, Italians don't want food to go. You don't want to go buy a pasta and then bring it home and eat it. Sometimes we'll get pizza to bring home. And some of the restaurants did get creative. I've mentioned this before. They will put their sauce in a container. They'll give you a bag of noodles, depending on how many people you have eating. And you kind of just cook the pasta when you get home. You add the sauce and make it yourself. But that's not the same as going to a restaurant and ordering 3-4 courses, getting wine. So they are really, really hurting. And we get takeout as much as we can just to support our favorite places. And I know restaurants have been hit everywhere. But I said something today, I don't know where I said it, one of my social networks. Like, don't be surprised if the next time you come to Rome, your only option for food is McDonald's and Kentucky Fried Chicken, because there are restaurants on my street that haven't opened in over a year. There are servers that I know that haven't worked one day in over a year, even though the restaurant is open, because there's no people. And when the restaurants are open, they're following all the rules that the government gave them, like they have to have only so many tables. They did have like these plexiglass dividers. That went away quick. They had electronic menus. That was required for a while. Those kind of gone away. Now they either have disposable menus or like a paper one that I guess they can get rid of if it gets too germy or something. So it's awful for them. So I feel really bad. So that's our lockdown. It doesn't feel like a lockdown. Just we can't go eat. There's talk of the government reassessing everything Friday, I think, and then maybe going back to orange next week for a few days before Easter, because at Easter the whole country is locked down. And I don't know if that's going to be like the Christmas lockdown or the first lockdown or this lockdown light. We'll see. And then after that, who knows? Still no idea when tourism is going to open. Still no idea when you will be able to visit. Amelia's here now. Still no idea about anything. Vaccinations here, still not going well. So that's going to take a while. I think I mentioned previously that Italy is planning to have everyone vaccinated by May 28th of 2022. That doesn't mean they're not going to open until that date. That just means that's how far behind they are with the vaccinations. So that's it. I don't have anything else to say. I'm all talked out. I talked for a full hour without stopping and really without taking very many questions. So Instagram cuts us off at an hour. That's coming up. So I guess I'll say ciao. Hope you're still following along in the station churches. We missed a couple, again, because of this lockdown. The one we posted Sunday, really, really good. Amelia and Lily did all the filming, and they did the talking, and it was really good. I think it's one of my favorite ones yet.
Thank you.
Go watch that one. That's on YouTube, that's on Facebook, that's on Instagram. You can watch that video. Tomorrow we have San Marcello. That church has a really cool story. You will know the crucifix that we're going to talk about because you saw it less than a year ago, I guarantee. Podcast going well. Sunday's episode was our most listened to episode ever by a lot. I think it was because it was a little controversial. So go check that out if you haven't. It's the Catholic Traveler Podcast. It actually bumped us into the top 100 Christian podcasts. I mean, not that that means anything, I don't think. There's still a lot of people ahead of us. Probably top 5 of Catholic podcasts, if I count, maybe. But those things change like every hour. And nobody looks at it except people that have a new podcast and are interested in that sort of thing. Anyway, check that out, Catholic Traveler Podcast. Check out the St. Peter's video the girls did the other day. Pray that this mass thing is overturned soon. And that's it. Ciao to my Instagram people. I have to stop because you're about to get cut off.
Bye.
So, bye. Bye. Thanks for watching.